Every year, people make YouTube videos listing out the highest paying trades jobs on the market. And surprisingly, these jobs pretty much go unchanged year after year after year. Everybody knows at this point that plumbers, HVAC, and electricians make a boatload of money and are actually at the top of the highest paying jobs in the trades. But what about the hidden jobs within the trades that people aren't actually really talking about? Jobs that you can actually make an incredible amount of money in, oftentimes as much money as you can make as a plumber, HVAC, or an electrician. In this video, we are going to explore 3 hidden trades jobs where you can make incredible money for this year. And as a side note, your ability to make really good money ultimately boils down to your ability to work for yourself and own your own business. Take a plumber, for example. A plumber can make about $65,000 a year working for a privately owned company, maybe even a little bit more than that. As soon as you get into a union, that number can jump up closer to $120,000 a year. If you move away from working for somebody else and start your own business and just become a sole proprietor, we've seen plumbers make upwards of $300,000 a year just simply working for themselves, doing the exact same work and having their own clients. Now, you can take that one step further, and if you're willing to build a team, a 5 to 10 person team, ultimately maybe even scale it up to 15 or 20 people, your take-home pay could be upwards of $1 million, anywhere between $300,000 and $1 million. Quite good pay as soon as you start moving into the ability to work for yourself. And so for the purpose of this video, we are going to assume that you are the owner-operator of your own business, probably just working for yourself, maybe with plans to have 1, 2, 3 employees down the road. Also, if you're new to the channel, my name is Adam Zwingler, and this channel is dedicated to helping people start businesses in the trades, scale them to $10 million in annual revenue over the course of a 10-year period. If you're interested in learning how to do that, or just learning how to start a business and start to scale it so that you can make more profit, then consider liking and subscribing and following along. Okay, so first hidden trades job, a septic truck owner. And these trucks, we see them everywhere. They drive all over the place. What most people don't know is that a septic truck can actually make somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million a year just pumping out people's septic tanks. And the demand is off the charts. A lot of times these companies aren't even calling people back because they have so many people wanting to get their septic tanks pumped and they can't even hit all the demand for their services. While making this video, I decided to call 12 septic companies and find out what they charge. 9 of the 12 companies never picked up the phone and never called me back. The 3 companies that did pick up the phone said that they were at least a month out as far as being booked. Of the 3 companies that did answer their phones and give me a price, the price to actually pump a septic tank was anywhere between $700 and $900 for a 1,000-gallon septic tank. All 3 of those companies were 1 to 2 months out as far as how far out they were booked before they could get me on the schedule. And that number actually goes up if you need same-day service, if you need after-hour service, or if they need to travel more than an hour outside of their normal typical range. Once on site, it only takes them about 20 to 25 minutes to pump a septic tank. Keep in mind, they're charging you somewhere between $700 and $900 to pump the septic tank. The truck is able to do all the work pumping out the tank in 20 to 25 minutes. One receptionist said that she typically schedules about a 2-hour window for every single septic tank that gets pumped out, and that on average, their septic tank drivers can pump anywhere between 4 and 6 tanks a day. Keep in mind, sometimes this is a 7-day-a-week job because people's septic tanks overflow and back up on the weekend, and you have to get out there and fix the problem. You can charge extra, but you have to get out there and fix the problem. So let's go ahead and break down the numbers and see how much money you can actually make if you have a septic truck and can go out and pump people's septic. Looking at the vehicle revenue first, as you can see, the average septic tank is going to be $700 per tank, and that is on the low end. On average, you should be able to pump about 5 tanks a day, which works out to be $3,500 in sales a week. And if you take $3,500 in sales a week and you multiply that over 52 weeks, you find that the average truck should be able to make over $1 million a year. $1,092,000 in gross revenue every single year. Now you're gonna have vehicle costs. And the biggest cost that you're gonna have is the disposal of the waste. You have to dispose of that in a certain place. And on average, if you're pumping 5 tanks a day, you're going to be paying about $1,000 a day for disposal costs. You're also gonna have fuel costs. Let's just say that's $200. You're also gonna have some other costs like maintenance and insurance. Let's throw that in there at $200. And when you add it all up, it comes to about $436,000 in costs that you're gonna have on average every single year on that truck. Okay, a couple things to consider at the very end here. You're going to have seasonality issues if you're anywhere in the northern states. But even with these numbers the way they are, you should be able to clear $400,000 in gross profit every single year. Another plus is that restaurants need their grease traps pumped regularly. So if you go down and you take your truck to the restaurants and you convince the restaurant owners that you should be the guy that pumps their grease traps, you will have monthly reoccurring revenue coming off of those grease traps. Probably monthly, every other month, you're going to be going down there pumping those grease traps. You can make even more if you're willing to add in porta potty rentals on the back end. So you would potentially rent out porta potties. They would go out, they would be rented, and somebody would be paying you on a weekly basis just to rent the porta potties from you. And then of course, you have the trucks and the equipment to go and pump the porta potties and fix the porta potties when the waste fills up in them. I would say overall, the negative side to this business is going to be seasonality if you're in the northern states, and the wear and tear on the vehicles. You can't discount the wear and tear on the vehicles. Over time, these vehicles are probably fairly expensive to maintain, and so you have to factor that in to your gross revenue as part of the expenses of this business. Now, let's go ahead and break down the numbers on hidden job number 2, which is a basement waterproofing tech. And as you probably know, if you have a basement, a lot of times basements have unwanted water down in the basement, especially after a large rainfall. You will find that your basement starts to flood, fill up with water, and of course, most people want to get that fixed, especially if they have stuff down in the basement. Just from a mold perspective of living in the house, most people want to waterproof their basements. So let's go ahead and look at the average amount that you can charge to waterproof somebody's basement, which is $4,500. And what we found in our research was that on average, a waterproofing job down in a basement can be completed in about 2 days, which means that the average amount that you can charge on a daily basis is about $2,200, which adds up to $686,000 over the course of a year, assuming that you are working 6 days a week. Now, maybe you don't want to work 6 days a week. Maybe you just want to work 5 days a week. Maybe you want to work 3 days a week and go fishing the other 2. But if you're willing to work 6 days a week, you can potentially make $686,000 a year doing basement waterproofing, assuming you're busy all the time. Now, breaking down the expenses on this business, you will probably have a couple $100 a day in material expenses. We just put that down as $300 a day in material expenses. You're also going to have fuel costs on your truck to drive around or your van to drive around. We put that at $100. And then you will also have maintenance and insurance on that vehicle and on your equipment at another $200 per day. And so when you add that all up, your total expenses is about $187,000 a year in order to have a basement waterproofing business. Now, maybe those expenses are higher, but there still is tremendous profit in this kind of a business, and you have very little wear and tear on equipment and very little materials. It's just really the labor to go down there and waterproof people's basements. A couple things to mention right at the end here is that you beat the seasonality issue with this job because you're working indoors, so you can essentially work year-round. It doesn't really matter what the weather's like. You can work year-round and continue to have sales flowing in. What I would consider to be somewhat of a negative is that every single basement is going to be different, and so you're essentially dealing with somewhat customized jobs. And whenever you have a customized job for each individual person, that costs extra and takes more time to problem solve each individual problem individually. That wraps up hidden trade job number 2. Let's go ahead and move on to trade job number 3. But before we go into hidden trade job number 3, if you are over there sitting there thinking about starting a company in the skilled trades, you're trying to generate ideas, you're trying to come up with something profitable, you know that this is going to be a career change for you going into the new year, consider coming over to Build Up University. This is our membership website. It has a lot of resources to help you start a business, scale it towards $10 million in annual revenue. And there is a section in there called the Website Template Builder. And basically, if you click on that section and you go through our 9-step questionnaire, which takes about 20 minutes, you select a template for a website that you need to build. And we have 3 beautifully designed templates in there. And you fill out the form, and at the end of the form, we charge you, I think it's $1,000 right now for a website, and we can build you a website in 2 weeks. You fill out the form, take 20-25 minutes to fill out the form, answer all the questions for us, and 2 weeks from now, we can have a fully functional, beautifully designed website for you built in in the trades, and we've built hundreds of websites for companies in the skilled trades. And this is our systematized, very, very efficient way that we've created to help you build a valuable business in the skilled trades, get it up on the internet simply without any hassle and at a low cost. Now on to hidden trade job number 3, which is a diesel compressor tech. Let's go ahead and jump into the revenue and take a look at what a diesel compressor tech can actually make. On average, you can charge about $2,500 per day to be a diesel compressor mechanic working on large diesel compressors and large diesel equipment. And guys, if you look around, it's all over the place. Literally look everywhere. Every large construction company has diesel compressors and diesel equipment, and there are simply not enough mechanics going around to work on that kind of equipment. So what we're finding with our sandblasting company is that whenever we need a diesel mechanic, they typically charge, on average, at least $2,500 a day to come out and spend the day working on our diesel equipment. So if you charge $2,500 a day, and let's say that you work on average 5 days a week, and even though this chart says 5 days a week, assume that it's actually going to be 6 days per week. That works out to be 312 days a year that you can charge $2,500 a day. And that works out to be $650,000 that you can charge. The beautiful thing about this business is that it's mostly labor. And if you are experienced in working on equipment, you might actually be able to clear north of $500,000 a year working as a diesel compressor tech. Now, assuming that you have a labor tech working for you, and that labor tech is making about $80,000 a year. We don't have it in the line item here, but labor would be roughly about $80,000 a year. And then of course you've got fuel for your truck and $200 for maintenance and insurance. It all adds up to about $93,000 that you would have wrapped up in having either a diesel tech mechanic go out there and work on things for you, or if you were to do it yourself. But if you take your revenue minus your expenses here, you still potentially have a profit of $556,000. I don't know if those numbers are completely accurate. What I would say is check into a diesel compressor tech, and what you're going to find is that the labor rate is extremely high. It's mostly labor. You outsource the parts. The company has to pay for the parts separately. And at the end of the day, these kinds of techs can actually make an incredible amount of money, especially if you're working for yourself. If you're working for somebody else, they are going to charge this astronomical rate. They are going to take a big chunk of the margin and they are going to pay you on a salary basis. So it's actually better to go ahead and start your own business and build the customer base on your own if you're going to start this kind of a business. That wraps up hidden trade job number 3. And if you made it this far into the video, guys, once again, consider liking and subscribing. This channel is devoted to helping you build businesses in the skilled trades. I'm going to wrap it up here and on to the next.